case you come back.
Yeah, okay. Oh, cool. All right. So how about you introduce yourself? Just tell people a little bit about who you are, what it is that you do, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds good. So basically, obviously, I am Sadie. So recently just had a slight dimension shift with my coaching business, I guess. This is a part-time love of mine, but also wanting it to be more than that. And I think the beauty of growing and expanding your ideas in business sense, it was time to sort of put my name out there as my name. And I'd always actually sort of been a bit, I'm not sure, like you use your name. And, I'd use Serenity and Sunflowers Just Be for a little while. That was actually based on my book. But that was the decal that I wanted on a shop front. So that's why I kept that business name for a while. And then it was this year when I went, hang on a sec. Workplaces, CEOs, the ANZ Bank want to see the person and also see the business reflect what they do. So only recently in April, I can now declare that I registered a name that I wanted to register for a long time, which was Sadie J. Wellness Coaching. So I've got two running at the moment because there's two dimensions of where I come from. Serenity and Sunflowers Just Be is my podcast, my Ayurvedic massage, my community events, my community fairs and festivals that I take myself to. And then Sadie J Wellness Coaching is very much around that very authentic, real wellness coaching space with the workshops and the workplace wellness. So, which really excites me because it means I can wear two heads, which is really just one, but then be able to attract certain people in certain spaces. And I think that's a real benefit from doing that. So I've been, so really community wellbeing's been my thing for over 20 years and I love it. And I love the group collective and I love being on here with you in terms of those that are going to listen to it and see the real Sadie and the real Dani. And
well, this is the real Dani because Dani asked one of her sons to check the quinoa bread at 15 minutes and he's not here and now it's beeping and I have to turn it down or it's going to burn. So here we are.
There you go. That is the real, absolutely. And I was talking to somebody the other day about the group that I put together, which I can mention later. But again, it was something that I've wanted to create for a little while, which is a Facebook private group for women. Now I know that there's lots around, but I always think that there is complementing, not competing, and there's two different things. And I think there's more of it. So my Wellness Words for Women Facebook group. I did a live. I tried to do a live, but I ended up having to do a pre-recorded video to put on it because Facebook's changed their thing that you need 100 people following you before you can actually press live, which I never knew. I never had to do that. Yeah, so that was interesting. So that put a spanner in the works. And of course, the first podcast episode visual that I wanted to do was about stress.
You're like, okay, we're here.
Here we go. So it's about showing up as the authentic you. We spend a lot of time trying to be someone that we don't need to be. So here we are on a Sunday, making a difference to.
That's a lot about sort of what I talk about and what how I'm trying to show up is that I think there's so much stuff out there. There's a whole smorgasbord of whatever you want. And I just think that at this kind of time of like I'm 47, the time in my life, our age group is not that well represented in terms of keeping it real. We have for yoga, we have our beautiful skinny white female yoga students or yoga teachers that are out demonstrating how to put their leg behind their head. I got it. Yes. I got it, mate. I got it. Thanks. All right.
Quinoa.
The quinoa, it's a banana and carrot bread, or like a sort of like a cake, but it's made with quinoa flour. So
I've made a similar thing like that before myself. Yeah, but it doesn't last. You've got to eat it.
Right. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
one that stays in his cupboard. It's fresh. And I think you're absolutely right. And in terms of another friend of ours who has done yoga for a number of years, and the appreciation that what people, it's like me in Pilates, to be honest. I don't necessarily want the balance. I want the calm in my mind, and I like the yoga. And I can't put my leg behind my leg at all, but I can do my downward dog, and I can do my, the stretchy out pose, and for me, that is the yoga style I like. The Drew yoga, the calming yoga, the gentle chair-based yoga, and not necessarily the hot yoga or the one that I'm going to leave probably feeling not the way that I would like to have felt when I went in the door. I'm sure it's absolutely for everybody, but I think it's like you say, talking about yoga is the perception of what it's going to be. It's what you make of it, and what it is for you. It's like walking. You don't have to walk fast to be able to enjoy a walk. A mindfulness walk is, as probably I personally think, more beneficial than running around the block thinking you just tick the box that you've done your 30 minutes. I'd rather do an hour and know that I've left my earpods at home, because I probably refused to do that in the last 10 years, where I realised that I was just filling my head with more things after work when I'd spent all my day talking on the phone, or running a workshop. Noise, beautiful noise most of the time, but then getting home and finding that by going out walking the dog with music in my ears wasn't allowing my brain pathway, I now know, to just relax and come down.
And I think that's a really important point. And actually, I don't actually feel safe as a woman walking with my things in my ears. I like to be aware of what's around me.
And I tend to walk at night time, because it's by the time I get home, and that's one of the other I stopped. But also, just there's so much noise going on. Like I can hear the wind. We're up in the southern part of Adelaide, up in the hills, and it gets very blowy up here. But I actually like hearing that. That's life out there. You know? Why don't we want to hear it?
Yeah, so true. So true.
But anything else you want to know me?
You're a bit like me. You're a smorgasbord of different things, and it's probably you've got lots of different arms to your toolbox to help women, which is fantastic. And I think sometimes it's a little hard. People say, "What do you do?" Well, it depends. That's right. I think one of the things that I was interested in just chatting about, and I think it's something that lots of us come up against, is in terms of, I know you do work in the workplace and work with different corporations, but we were talking a little bit about how to deal with conflict and how to deal with situations where you're in trying to work with people and you've got, let's face it, we do have people that are happy to work with others, and then we have people that are a lot trickier. And it sometimes causes a lot of stress in workplaces, especially if it's not dealt with quickly. And I often, in my experience, I've noticed that these people they're just so hard, they just get moved on. They get moved on. And so I guess some advice, maybe some strategies for people who have got somebody like this in their team, or it might even be their boss, which is really tricky. How do you stay well? What are some of your advice that you would give to people in these situations?
Basically, it's being able to know who you are. And I think this is, if I start sort of at the beginning and sort of end up coming in a circle to say the strategies that I personally use, I've been there myself several times, where in the workplace I've had not conflict, but probably me wanting to be able to provide a really great service, but then to my internal colleagues, and then finding out that maybe my creativity and my zest and my spirit was too overpowering for them, for example. Interesting. And That actually did happen. And if I was really, declaration here, it made me realize that in 2001, when I went back to work in local government, I've been in for 23 years, love it. Have got less and less involved in a team leader role for an absolute reason, due to near burnout in 2018. Probably because I was in a space where I had worked in that particular space for a long time and was getting if I go back to where I was challenged, I suppose, was when I returned to work in 2011 after having my second daughter. So I'd had sort of 18 months of no government, no structure. My husband bought a business. I was going down there a couple of days a week. And then this job popped up back in a local council. I went for it. It was social programming, social planning, and creating a beautiful social program, which is still happening now, I believe. To come in with the zest and the love of life and the spirit can also be a challenge for other people. And then you start doubting yourself. So even though there's no conflict there, I like to talk about stress in the workplace being around personalities and our learning styles. The learning styles of people are visual, people are auditory. Some people want a bit of both. Equal that with the time and space, where some people take a week to get back to you about something, whereas my personality is it's an intuitive decision. It's because of experience that I know if I make this decision, it's not going to have too many ramifications. So let's just go with it. And also having a real stance where once we actually did a psychometric testing that showed that I was the yellow person of the team, so go to Sadie for the creativity and the brainstorming and the confidence to stand up in front of 300 people, versus the child I was, which was extremely shy and wouldn't talk to anybody, versus as an adult going, the world will leave me behind if I actually don't build up this confidence to be natural in the fact that I like myself, and also being able to reflect though and have that emotional awareness that when you come up against conflict or people that aren't your people or see you as not their people, that's where you've got something. So if I get to the strategy point is where I talk more around in my workshops around stress awareness and stress reflection. So if anyone can take something away from today's chat is please look at stress awareness and stress reflection before looking at stress management. I think we get caught there. And again, it's a personal opinion that I talk to clients about is, let me ask you this question. How can you manage your stress if you're not aware of what it is? And if you haven't done that reflective work, and it can happen very much in the workplace. I see it at work where I am working now, where conflict or misunderstandings happen because of not as much emphasis made on the person looking at themselves and what they contribute to the conversation. We're so busy. We're like, the little duck with the water. We need to get the job done, but we're not always doing very well anymore. And I hear this from a lot of people, is going within and understanding what it is that's triggering our stress in the first place. Knowing who we are. One of the key things I ask people at the beginning of a workshop is, who are you and what's your journey so far? Can't not say it now. I start everything with that. What's your story? Who are you, Dani? What's your story so far? And going back to our narrative, so that when we get triggered by the stress that's caused, the biological, there's a biology behind it all, isn't there, in terms of the ability for our brain to shrink the more stressed we are, and the hippocampus shrinks. So, that's the part in our brain that's very much around motivation and learning and emotions. And if that shrinks, someone that's stressed, so non-stress, big hippocampus, really stressed, cortisol levels just on high alert all the time. And, good stress is good for us. If we can't have that spike in cortisol to get us out of that conflict and that stressy situation, because there's just none left because you're always at that level, we need to bring that cortisol level back. Hence, when you do your yoga is that calming, letting that central nervous system, the vagus nerve system, all of that just relax, because our hippocampus in our brain do some more research. It's really fascinating. Shrinks the more that we're stressed, because the cortisol level is just shrinking it. Yep. And then that's when we're at more risk of the neurodegenerative diseases later on. But guess what? It's not too late. Just because you're genetically maybe at risk, let's say, you can do a lot of work when you identify what it is that's causing you stress in the workplace, in your organisation, at your local Scouts club if you're a Scout leader. All of those different areas of your life is amplified, I think, so that when you get to work, if you're having a similar experience, everything's going to be a trigger. You're not going to understand how to actually, because there are many ways to de-stress. One size doesn't fit all, but I start at the very beginning by saying, if you feel stressed and there is conflict in the workplace, then what is it that's triggered us? You would know as well, and many of the people who are watching us, is they will know what stresses them. And to manage it is the first thing, is to understand what it is that's stressing you. Our brain doesn't know the difference between being scared in a minute because the door's going to open to when that last happened that made me feel as nerves. Our brain doesn't know the difference. So if we've had trauma or fear in the past and somebody says something and that reminds you of that conflict you had 20 years ago that made you feel really icky and sad and upset, and doubting yourself and impacting your self-esteem, so that you feel, well, you'll never talk to that person again. It's not helping you. And I think we need to teach people always how we want to be treated, and that it's not okay. If you're being, we teach our children, don't we? Stop it, I don't like it, or you're making me feel sad. It's like carrying everyone's monkeys. I read a report many years ago around it was a very high level report that I read when I was doing more of the positive psychology. And it was around physically monkeys on your shoulder, latching onto your hip, and you just imagine yourself with all these monkeys, and the monkeys were other people's worries. And it was about going, here you go, you have yours back. You feed and water your own problems, because we carry a lot of monkeys on our back. An analogy is your own monkeys, but give the other monkeys back. And that's where conflict does happen in the workplace as well. We take on a lot of other people's workload, but also stresses, and then we actually forget which ones are ours. So that
I love the analogy of the monkeys, and I just checking my quinoa bread. And I've just realised that I've forgotten to put the coconut oil in it, so it's going to be as dry as a bone. Anyway, this is all about learning, isn't it? Because I'm learning how to cook protein-rich food.
Yeah.
Interesting. Look at it looks good.
It looks beautiful.
It looks good. It's going to taste like shit, but that's okay.
Melt the coconut butter and put it on the coconut oil.
What I'm going to do, you know what happened? I put it in the microwave, and then I am notorious, Sadie, for leaving ingredients out of food. Notorious. I'll make a fantastic mother-in-law when I share my recipe with my daughter-in-laws and leave out a
butter that's going to bind it all together.
All right, the coconut oil is on the top. Let's see how this goes.
There you go.
God.
It'll be fine. And you know what? It probably tastes better than the way it was going to taste. So always think on the positive. And you're talking about someone that lives and breathes positive psychology. So there is always a good thing out of, moving from the, negative into the positive. But
and this is really how things are found, isn't it? This is how inventions are found, how, when creativity, you make mistakes. Yeah. And it can often turn out to be quite interesting outcome. All right, I'm going to leave it in there.
When you say that, I was having a conversation the other day with an organisation I'm working with at the moment in Adelaide, and I think we did 3 sessions in the end, but it was of an evening, and you know, I think there were a few things that we could have done in the beginning to have got more people there, in terms of marketing and promotion, and marketing and media being my background before I came to Australia. But they said, what did we do wrong? And I went, we didn't do anything wrong. We need to shift it. Yes, the word wrong is in the dictionary. Yes. The word mistakes is in the dictionary. So I'm not saying that we don't make mistakes and we don't do something wrong. But I think when you're thinking about it inwardly and outwardly, there was nothing that we did wrong. It's just what we can do better next time to get people to come in. And then you go into that space of, especially when I just love anything to do with the brain, is that you've just set off some different neurons and different pathways in your brain to go, it's like feeling sad. What is it that you can do physically? What's the action? Thinking that we're thinking, being and doing. We've got to, you know, the thoughts are the emotions and the feelings. And I teach this as well about the event, thought, reaction. Your Kate, for example, it was the event. The reaction would be, shit, we're going to have dry banana bread. But it's only because of you thinking this happened last week as well. So we call it ETR. So ETR, event, thought, reaction. The way that we react to an event is the way, microsecond, or not even that. It's the thought, it's a lived experience, it's behavior, it's the way you were brought up, it's your culture, it's what you believe in, it's your values, it's your own rituals. So that happens in that you don't go from an event like nearly burnt quinoa to, you know, responding to it in the way you may or it happens because of that bit in the middle. And I find that fascinating. So if anybody can, again, take something from here, is that identify that what stressed you in the workplace is because of an event, but it's also because of what has triggered it off for you. Your brain doesn't know the difference. So let's say, and I'm not disrespecting the fact that other people have different personalities. Like I was saying, when I went back to work, I was, you know, the creative flair. I'd come back. I'd been on maternity leave. I love working in local government. I love the community. I'm the least bureaucratic person that you'll meet. And I'm very proud of being that person, because I won't go in and be rude at all, but I'll be the one that people will come for a calm, well decision, because I've been able to say to somebody, so what's the outcome? What's the benefit to the person? Very, very person-centric. I can't stop using the word, because we forget very easily that it's not about us, it's about everybody.
Yeah.
So stress is huge in the workplace at the moment. People are very overwhelmed. I guess I never like calling it a niche, because we're half the population, but women's wellness is definitely my focus. I used to run a lot of men's groups, as well, being the only female, actually, more in the aging space. And they equally deserve as much TLC than women do, but certainly women in the workplace at the moment, with the higher density of, and I had some ABS stats somewhere, but with, you know, the amount of people that are working, well, women who are working more now, there's going to be some, let's say, side effects to that. You know, it's less time, it's juggling, it's what do other people say to me? It's about wanting, but also be willing to delegate. But I shouldn't delegate, because the ones that, you know, and that typical historical thought process that we've had through the generations of being women and not standing on a high horse, being a feminist, or, you know, the suffragettes did their bit, and, you know, through history. But there is still an expectation, even when I forget my mother-in-law's birthday, that you rely on the son to buy the birthday card. But no, you feel guilty because you're the one that's meant to be seen to have remembered that. You know, you should have your stack of birthday cards with labels on it ready to go, like my 9-year-old Nan did, because back then, that's...
What a great idea. I love that.
Why don't we do it more? Because spontaneity prevails. It's but going back to stress in the workplace, certainly towards the latter end of this year, moving out of winter time, I'm starting the new program that I've written, which is Me, Myself and My Midlife Mind. And being 50 next year, not even 49 yet, but I'm definitely 50 next year though, is that I came to the point where I have worked all the way through my children. I went back to work when my first daughter was 8 months old, and I went back to work when Annabelle our second was only 8 months old, because we bought a business. So it wasn't back to work, but it was certainly back into that mindset of not only being a mother, and I don't use the word just, I'm not saying that, but not only being a mother, I became a business owner. I became a working mum, but it was only, like I say, fast forward to 2018, where after 8 years, wonderful 8 years of working and building and nourishing and nurturing a beautiful program that I created, it was time to give it to someone else. It was like giving the monkey in that way. It wasn't a problem. It was, now you take it to that next step. I need to go. I can't be at work at 8 o'clock at night still producing magic when my family, and a phone call from my daughter at 8 o'clock saying, "Mum, are you coming home today?" was an absolute light bulb moment for me. Hugely. I was so upset at the time that it took my own child to say, "It's time to come home, Mum," because it was what I was doing. I was so in the flow with, and I needed to get it done because half my team didn't show up for work that day. I still wanted to get the best benefit for the people for the following day. Now, somebody might say we could have left it. It wasn't something I could leave for tomorrow. I had to get it done. And then that's when I realized that I was conflicting against my own values then. I made a change and I moved on to a different council. Absolutely loved it. Ran a carers program, saw burnout and overwhelm in a very different space. And that's when I started doing a little bit more around the positive psychology and relearning, because I think we should all relearn a lot throughout life, really. Not saying do degrees, but just always be open to learning, always be curious. And I realized that carers were only accessing certain services when that crisis had happened. Wow. You know, when you see other people not in the workplace being equally overwhelmed and stressed and doing what we call a 24/8 job, because it just never stops, is that it certainly puts your own life into, for that moment, you go, okay, it's a different type of stress, but it's certainly, I learned a lot from running that program on how to manage stress, but also how to support other people to do stress. And that's the me, myself, and my midlife mind. It's going to be a beautiful evening with women understanding how to go from stress to that feeling of relaxation and calm, because we can do it, Dani, you know that too. We can't afford to have the burglar alarm blasting for a long time. We can't have that cortisol level, which everyone is let's say suffering, because it's a genuine word. People are suffering a lot of stress and overwhelm at the moment. Had the COVID, oh, this is nice, we can just be a family, or, you know, there was a lot of negative things that came out of what I know, but we actually now do a lot more as a family because we realized we could do that. And we were so busy having lots of people over, we were having dinner parties all the time and barbecues all the time, and we realized even during COVID, we actually really enjoy just being a family sometimes, because again, it was all great before COVID. I think that taught us the time where we can go within and, you know, be with the people that we're with, not worry. We're probably less busy now than we've ever been, but it's for a good, it's a good outcome.
I'm moving again, these boys. Woo! Goodness me. Can you share a little bit about, you've had your own health journey, any advice that you could give to people who maybe have had a recent diagnosis, or having, you know, something that's really challenging their health? What things maybe worked for you? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2020, I found a lump just after we came back from a beautiful holiday at Port Fairy, one of our favourite places where we can do what my business is, just be for a minute and just, walk into town. I got a stand-up paddleboard from my Christmas present from my husband, which was great. So 1 minute I'm standing on a paddleboard learning not to fall off, and then coming home, and I had just finished unpacking, and then I got in the shower, and I've always washed without any sponge or anything. I've always been very aware. I want to know what's happening on my body, and I've always showered without it. So, and then I'd lost a lot of weight. I'd lost 14 kilos, which was intentional. I went on a very green eating diet, and I lost probably a bit more weight than I wanted to, and then sort of worried myself that I was didn't want to keep losing weight, which is hard when you're 5'10" and you're broad. But when I lost about 14 kilo, and I felt good. I've had, and I say this, I felt the best I felt lean. I felt strong. I had been doing HIIT training. I've always been active. I'd been, I felt really good. And then I found a lump, and I knew exactly what it was. My brain and it just computed together. So it was breast cancer. So I got diagnosed on the 12th of February. I went for, it was just before the Australia Day, actually. So we'd been, when I finally started having appointments, we went away, and then I was having the results after, obviously, Australia Day to see if the biopsy needed to then be a core biopsy. And that's how it all started. So I found the lump, which I'm really grateful for. I wasn't heavily breasted anyway, so it was quite easy to see. I lay down, I could see it, and it was very odd because I thought, why haven't I not known this is here before? Like, little bugger, it's been in there, and I had no other symptoms whatsoever. Anyway, so 12th of February I got diagnosed, saw a surgeon the following day, and on the 19th of February, I had my first mastectomy. I didn't have much time to think about it. So within a week of being diagnosed, I was in having my righty off. And we talked about it then that my mum had breast cancer as well, but it was DCIS. And I'm not saying that that's not breast cancer. It is still breast cancer, but it hadn't invaded like mine had. Mine had actually, by pathologies that were ended up being stage 2B. But it was a slow growing tumour, which is why younger women have denser breast tissue. So when I had a mammogram in 2014, it wasn't picked up because it probably might have been there. They think it was only there for about 4 years. So I guess what I'm getting to is the fact that I felt the best that I'd ever felt. I'd done everything right that I thought I'd done for my own body, and being, exercised and be fit. And even the nurse said to me, it doesn't matter. It does matter to be healthy, but all of what I'd done hadn't been the cause of it specifically. It can be a myriad. I never spent the time trying to analyze why it had happened to me. I never, ever said it. One thing I didn't say is why me, because it could equally be somebody as lovely as me. And also, what have I done wrong? So basically, I then went in 3 weeks later to have I call it my armpit removal. It's a full axillary clearance. They found more breast cancer in one of the sentinel nodes. And that was when I realized, Sadie, all of this well-being stuff you've been doing, teaching the community how to live well and age positively and eat the right food, including quinoa, worked with GPs, worked with yoga instructors, worked with naturopaths to bring that into the community, to stand there going, wow, that's great. I had to chew my own words. I had to look after myself. And I think the benefit for me is that because I was trained in wellbeing and resilience and positive psychology back in 2014, and prior that have always been interested in the mind and how our brain ticks, literally, was I lay in that hospital and I went, right, I can either let it control me or I'm going to control it. And a friend of mine actually said to me, stop saying it happens to so many other people, and it's not just me. She said, this is you. This is happening to you and your body. Please look after yourself, because she said you're always looking out for everyone else. And there's thousands of other women and men. People get diagnosed with something all the time. I've had arthritis for years, since my early 30s. Have I let it stop me? No. I just know that walking makes me feel better. I've got bursitis in my shoulder. I've got arthritis in my knee, in my foot. I don't have my own boobs. I had to get rid of my thyroid 2 years ago. It wasn't cancerous. And I had an ovary removal. And I said to somebody the other day, I went, they're like, how did you get through all of this? So the strategy is, because I didn't let it control me, and I wanted to be here. And I said, whatever you say I have to do, and I'll give away anything other than my heart and my mind. You can have the rest, if it means I'm still breathing in and out. Now, turn the coin, and I asked my surgeon, do you have everyone coming in a bit like me? Because I'm sure, you don't. She said, no. She said, but I think because you're a naturally positive person, this has actually done you so much benefit. Because somebody could say, I didn't use the cancer word for a while. I just went BC or blip, or, I wrote in my book that it was, just a hiccup, because it doesn't matter what diagnosis or hiccup, your health hiccup you're going to have, it can impact you in the same way. Somebody could stub their toe and it probably feels as stressful as being, diagnosed with diabetes. I know that's sort of two ends of the spectrum, but just having a diagnosis of anything can be very different for different people. I had breast cancer. Yes, I can talk about it more openly now for 4 years later, without feeling the stereotypical breast cancer warrior. I don't use those words. I don't use survivor. I think we're all surviving something. It's just I called myself a breast cancer pivoter.
Like netball.
Yeah, because I played netball for a long, long time. So, because for me, again, what triggers it off, warrior and survivor, means that I don't want to be on a soapbox with being the survivor, because we are all, again, there's Sadie again, thinking about everyone else. We are all surviving something. But if you've got the tools for the job, which I had as a bit of a precursor and I'd been teaching people how to stay well and resilient for a long time, and still continue to do that, that for me it was just a bloody inconvenience to have it. But I didn't have to go through active treatment. I didn't go through radiation and chemo, which 2 of my friends are going through as we speak. And so mine was slightly different. I'm slammed with medication though for a long time that has potentially as many symptoms or outcomes as chemo and radiation. I just didn't use my hair. So, for me personally, if you ask me though, how did I get through it? I had the tools for the job, which was a bonus, but it was also a positive mindset. I've always wanted to be on the air of positivity. I find it icky if I start going into the negative for too long. We all have a bad day. We all have traffic to go to work. We all don't want to go to work. I have days like that. I'm not superhuman by any means. But what makes me feel better is put on some classical music. Was brought up with it. So I do like classical, not high level classical, just calming music. 10, 15 minutes of that has got me back into that space. But that's my go-to. I obviously now can communicate very well compared to when I was younger, and that was when I got to university. And again, I had to move away from home. We do a lot of that in England. We move away to uni, and I had to stand on my 2 feet. And it wasn't just about cooking my own dinner. I'd always like to do that anyway, but it was about some real life learning skills back then, to go, you can't just be the one that sits in the background and wait for someone to come and talk to you. You've got to be out there. And I still have my moments where I went to a networking the other day and I went, no, I'm going to exit. I wasn't in the mood for the handing out business card scenario. That's why I went though. But actually my emotions of that day, I didn't fancy talking to lots of people. So I exited really subtly. And yeah, I have days like that too. Sometimes it's not floating my boat.
Yeah.
So any adversity, any health issues, as hard as it is and as challenging as it has been, and I'm not saying that my journey has been easy. It's continuing. I've just had surgery in the last 8 weeks. I know that that's probably going to be what my life is now, but it's part of it. It's not my life. It's part of my life.
Yeah, great. I think that's great advice for people, because I can imagine that tackling, putting the fear of the unknown somewhere is a challenge for people to compartmentalize that, or what to do with that, and not allow that to to run everything. And I'm guessing, because I haven't been in this position, that it's acknowledging it, not stuffing it down, acknowledging it, but then also taking what you said and having that positive mindset and saying, okay, this is part of what's going on in my life right now. It doesn't have to be all of it.
It's a choice, and we all have a choice. And I always challenge someone when they say, oh, I haven't got a choice. You do have a choice. You have a choice on how you're going to respond to it, and you have a choice on how you deal with it. You can't choose all of the other stuff that's going to come in along the way. I love the analogy of life being a train journey, where friendships even, or things happen. Things will get off at a stop, things will get on at a stop. But at the end of the day, the train journey of your own life and your own experiences is there is a choice. I can choose to be in the job that I like. I can choose to leave it. I might, though, have to understand I might have to have a pay drop. I might have to work in Audi or IKEA, which wouldn't be too bad. I always go, oh, I could work in IKEA. I could just spend all day just fiddling with all the pillows and cushions. The fact is, we do have a choice. Sometimes we don't, but I think 80% of my brain always thinks about there's a choice here. I might, if I go that way, though, I'm going to be challenged and I might feel uncomfortable. And I think our confidence as individuals gets bolstered and strengthened when we're challenged. And I'm not saying being challenged, going back to the conflict and challenged, that can be extremely exhausting if you spend your day challenging things yourself and other people, but more in the sense of stretch that our brain, the neuroplasticity as it's called, is the ability to, that's a muscle, stretch it, learn new things, be courageous. The one thing to get up in the morning, which I struggle at the moment, is the beauty of the brain going, I've just done something that I didn't want to do. It's challenged yourself. I think when I look at what I've also done with my own health, is that because I've loved walking, I've obviously set up my walking group, which isn't just for people who have had breast cancer.
Tell us about that. You went this morning.
Yes, we had to cancel it because the weather was looking so iffy, and 2 or 3 people weren't well, and it was just, you know what, I'm okay with that. We'll just cancel it. It wasn't meant to be. The weather wasn't on our side. So yes, I do wellness walks. I haven't done many in the last year because I've had an overseas trip and obviously this surgery. And I don't know about you as well. Sometimes you want to plan so many things, but then you realise that you might end up having to move things around a bit too much. So I knew that between September and now that I would just park a couple of things in my business, and I'm not going anywhere, so there was no rush to cram everything in. But one thing back in so it was at the end of 2020, I had my second mastectomy, and that's when my reconstructive process started. Going expanders to implants was for me about 10 months, because I ended up having to have my thyroid out because it was an airway surgery. They had to do that first, so the operations got switched over. But during that time, a lady said to me, what do you want to do next year? I said, definitely not what I'm doing this year. So 2021, I had the idea of setting up a walking group. So I have set up a couple of Heart Foundation walking groups in the past for work. And I thought, well, why not? She said, well, why don't you? I said, well, okay. So I was chatting away to this nurse, and I said, I would just love to think that how much I honour exercise, and breast cancer especially. Keep a healthy diet, exercise will lessen, doesn't mean it won't happen, but it will lessen, obviously, reoccurrence, which we all worry about. I worry about it, to be honest, but I just then go, right, lodge that back there, because, again, I teach people this as well. We do spend quite a lot of time, and probably an unhealthier time in our mind, worrying about what actually hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So treat that the same with my breast cancer. It could happen, it couldn't happen, but I'll deal with it the same way, hopefully, as I did the first time. Is right, tell me what I need to do, let's get on with it. I've got other things to do, but that's, again, my brain. I didn't go into what my surgeon then qualified. Yes, there are people that come in here and feel like life is already over, that is it, and I get that, and I understand where those people are coming from. So what I wanted to do was take another step in my own experience and help other people by offering a walking group once a month. So it's called the Breast Friend Project. Project is because it's a play on words that I've always obviously managed projects, and the Breast Friend walking group needed another word in it. So it's like the Breast Friend Project. It's an evolution. It's got different milestones in it. It's very small at the moment. I'm going to be promoting it a lot more with Heart Foundation. They're going to put it in their newsletter as an article. But at the same time, it's Sadie from Woodcroft, walking every fourth Sunday of the month, 8:45. If you're there, you're there. If you're not, you're not. So I've got a Facebook page, which is a private closed group. But for the walkers of ours, I've got about nearly 70 women on there. A lot of them are sitting on the periphery. I keep trying to, encourage them to come out, but they're spread across South Australia. But we've probably got about 5 or 6 regular walkers. So it's not overkill if anybody wants to come along, because they know me, or they know someone that's had breast cancer, but the person themselves is either not here or they don't want to go, they can walk. So that's why I called it the Breast Friend, because I want families to come along, bring your dog. I would love it, say, in a couple of years' time, to have this flood of people walking between Kingston and Brighton, and they go, that's the Breast Friend Project crew over there. Bring kids, bring the dog, walk on the beach, whatever. I just think bringing people together with a specific reason why, again, you've either had it or you know someone that has. Or the girlfriend partner of. So that's the 4th Sunday of the month. I am absolutely more than happy. I feel like I manage it from promoting it and doing little reminders, but we've also got a WhatsApp group for the people that do walk more regularly. That's just easier on the morning, so I can quickly only check that and go, oh, no, they've got, they're not coming now. And then I hold that integrity that we get started bang on 9 o'clock regardless, and people can always ring, go, I'm sorry, I was parking the car. But if you leave it later, it's like anything with it's 6:30. If you're late, you've just got to start and join. You've got to just join in, or door shut.
Well, you'll find it'll be 12 o'clock and you're still waiting.
So it is the focus is, when I launched it at Carrick Hill, I decided to launch it last May in 2023. So it's a couple of years because of COVID. I didn't start it up. So I did had a few people up there at Carrick Hill to launch the idea, and distinctly said the walk is the primary, the coffee is the secondary. And I never say it wasn't a support group on feet, but at the same time, it is what people want it to be. If they feel they want to talk to me about the breast cancer and the surgery, I'm happy to talk about it. But my only preference is that you don't spend the whole time talking about it. It's about being you. It's about being who you are. The reason you're here is because, So because that's not about me. That's more around your well-being as well as an individual. But
as you said, your brain can't tell the difference if you're reliving that trauma over and over again. You're pushing that cortisol back into your body again and again and again and
it's
again.
Just a cycle. So I just say, just once a month, come as you are, with all your inhibitions, blow it out to sea. And I can't help but say, let's just stop for a second, and I want you to look out to the horizon. It's the 5 senses thing, but you can do nature bathing and forest bathing, and it's a beautiful thing. But I think just general human beings, my advice is always to tap into your five senses. What can you see? What can you taste? Even opening your mouth. When I walked down our reservoir, I can actually even feel that I can taste the eucalyptus, let alone smell it.
Yeah.
It's very, very good for you to do that, as well as yoga and other relaxation techniques. Is when you're getting that serotonin surge, I call it. Like, come on.
Yep. Yeah. And bringing yourself into that here and now is very powerful, isn't it? I mean, we do that a lot with students that are, having anxiety, and we say, come to your breath. What can you see? What can you smell? What can you taste?
Yeah.
So that, that racing mind that heads forward or it heads back. No, bring it here right now. And what a better place to do that but in nature, hey? And looking at that horizon, being in community.
I could talk about that for so long, knowing that I'm a nature lover anyway, and knowing the benefits of being out in the garden. It's what I'm going to do in a minute. I'm going to put my beanie on and my jacket. My husband's warned me that because we were away in Uluru the other week, obviously, and I was house sitting actually before that, so I feel like I haven't lived at home for a little while. But everybody survived. That's good. That but the garden's got weeds in it. Now I'm a fastidious gardener. Not everything's very rustic. I'm not saying everything's got the scissors out on it. I'm not, but I just love my gardening. Absolutely love it. If you can't find me in the house, I'm definitely out. Walking the dog.
Yeah.
I'm either in one or the other. I'm a dragon boat paddler as well, so I love anything to do with water sports. The season will start again in September, and that's definitely something also that I put in as a positive when I was diagnosed. Right, 20 years I've been wanting to do dragon boat racing, and if this is any excuse to do it, it's great for avoiding lymphedema, which fortunately, even though I lost all my lymph nodes in my right armpit, I haven't developed it, touch wood. And I think the reason for that was straight away, I knew that I would have to put some preventative stuff in place, and knowing my body and know what I can do. I can do HIIT training, and I love it. And I love that adrenaline. But I also go to the other side and I go, I know my body. I know what I need. I know what I need to nourish it. And I think, again, just while we're on that subject, is having the serotonin surge from the simplest of things, which I say walking, gardening, nature, anything. When we're out on the dragon boat, that adrenaline race start, and you're only doing 200 meters, but that, it's a mixture of adrenaline, shit, we're going to crash, and also excited win is wood. That acute stress, that acute adrenaline rush is good for us because it makes it tests us. Physiologically, our brain and that hippocampus I mentioned earlier, which you would know about, is getting time to it's when we're stressed, it's going to shrink. Taxi drivers in the UK, there was a study about taxi drivers who they did a study, and they obviously did the brain scan of a taxi driver versus a general brain, and their hippocampus was bigger than the general brain, because they had to remember every street in London.
How fascinating.
Yeah, before GPS, I don't know if they have to rely on their memory that much these days because we've got GPS and sat navs, but that was one of them, to be a London taxi driver, and literally their brain hippocampus was bigger than a general brain hippocampus because they had to learn and grow and, continually had to do it. I don't think you see many stressed taxi drivers either. So maybe the bigger the hippocampus, the less stressed you are.
So we need to work on our hippocampus, making it nice and big and juicy.
If anything. So when you've got that conflict in the workplace, which I know we touched on, is just always learn, build that hippocampus. Go and Google it. It's a fascinating part of our brain, and it's such an important part of our brain. It's the part of our brain that if we nurture and we look after, because we don't learn this in school. We don't learn about the hypothalamus and the hippocampus and the amygdala and the limbic system. We don't. It's only if you're into it, which I'm crazy about it, is that, well, now I understand that then. And if we nurture the hippocampus, hopefully, because it's not, there's lots of science around it, but hopefully it means that you're at less risk of having, sadly, neurological diseases, which my mum has. So she had breast cancer, and she will say she smoked most of her life. She hasn't been overly exercising, but she's got vascular depression, which is very similar to vascular dementia, because it is that hippocampus and it is that frontal lobe and it is the precortical. It's all of the brain isn't working at full capacity anymore because of the lesions on her brain. Now, did she want that? No. But did I want it for my mum? No. But instead of what I initially was like, oh, you're kidding. Like, why would she, like, why my mum, for that split second, until I realised that my mum can't change it. She can't change what she's done. It may not have had anything to do with eating too many prawns or not enough broccoli. It's just, you haven't got time, especially with aging parents as well in the mix as working and having potentially that conflict in the workplace, that not everybody knows that. Now the whole of your group will know that Sadie is a wellness coach and a group facilitator around wellbeing and resilience, but also has a parent in her life that I can't change what's happening in her brain, but I can only help her by understanding that every breath she still takes is worth every penny, She now does a colouring group, and she doesn't necessarily talk to everybody. She was an absolute party lover and extrovert, and had a very good reputation at work for being the person to go to. Now she's the one that will hide in the corner. And you can see that maybe stress in her life may have caused that. There's some trauma there as well from a very young age. And all of that, you go, it could be that, it could be that, it could be that, and it could just be everything. Yeah. But please, if anyone's listening and go, yeah, that's fine, I understand that, but just always look after your own mind. Make sure that you nurture it as best you can. Don't get consumed with the amount of information that we have. And I call it the Women's Weekly syndrome, is that even I used to think that I'd go into Woolworths and pick up Women's Weekly and it was going to tell me the best thing since, quinoa porridge and all this sort of stuff. Read less and be more, because we don't always get it right, Dani, do we?
Banana and carrot quinoa bread in
the topic, but how great, it's been the anchor of our conversation.
Oh, well, I'll have to keep you updated on how it is. Look, and it's life's journey, isn't it? That's number one try. I'll see how I go. If I've created an amazing concoction with my new way of doing things, or will I give it another go next week? We'll see.
The other thing that I really wanted to share with everybody today, when we were talking about a bit of everything in terms of well-being, is something that I always honor as well, is you talk about all or nothing. It's all or nothing. It's either black or it's white. Please, let's try and think about all or something, because something is always better than nothing. I'm being reminded of that by, I'm actually studying another string to the bow, I suppose, is the menopause specialist coaching. And to be able to specifically know that clients and future workshop participants know that I've consistently learned through my own menopausal journey. So I was clinically put into menopause at 44.
Right.
That was overwhelming. Hot flushes galore all the time. Haven't had the stereotypical night sweats or anything like that, but I've certainly had the hot flushes, and I've certainly had the getting up in the morning and being like a crabby old lady to walking to the toilet until everything started greasy. And that was a shock for me at 44 to suddenly have gone, not being able to walk up the stairs without clicking, because I obviously got arthritis in my knees now. And that was probably brought on by netball and things as well. So everything's happened to the right side. So yeah, should become a lefty. But yeah, that all or something is better than nothing. And it was actually coined, well, it was in the book that I've been reading recently. And I went, oh, there it is again, all or something. So, you know, it's taking back, if you're into mathematics and you go, okay, so I'm going to walk 3 times or 4 times a week, but I only did it twice. Okay, so I'll say to a client, but you did it 50% of it. You didn't not do it. You did it 50%. So you did half of what you said. So next week, is there anything you can change? Well, actually, instead of doing 4, I might actually then just try 3 next time. Okay, so did you 3? No, I only sort of managed still 2. Okay, that's fine. You did 75%. So be creative, have fun. We spend a lot of time in the adult life. Let's have a bit of child. And I say that as well. Adult versus childlike play. Have fun. You know, we know as a child, it's not about being the, you know, the larrikin of the office or whatever, but I'm just saying it from a genuine heart-centered, that we spend a lot of time in the adult space. Bring that childlike play, be courageous, burn the quinoa, you know, do whatever it is. Have fun with it. You might make biscuits out of it instead.
I know. I was just like, my youngest one's come here looking for food. I'm like, get a knife. You can do a taste test. Come on, let's try
it. There you go. Taste test online, please. I want to see.
Right. No, a butter knife, please. Yeah, I reckon, Sadie, I've put holes in it and I put that coconut oil over the top. I reckon we might have saved it.
You might have done it. Yeah. That's teamwork.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I could have thrown it in the bin, right? That would be black and white thinking.
That would have been. Yeah.
So, all right, Harry, come on, you're going to be our taste tester. You ready? No, come on.
Making me hungry, Dani.
Sorry. It's actually quite moist. I'm surprised. It's good.
There you go. Does it taste the same as it did before, but by doing a bit of an adjustment, or?
This is the first time I've made it, so.
Oh, okay. You might like it that way now.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Oh, yum. Very good. Well, Sadie, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing.
My absolute pleasure.
And we'll get your links and put them in the bottom of the YouTube video. And it's been a joy chatting with you. Thank you so much. I've been moving around and navigating my family life as I do.
I do have, if anybody's interested, I thought, and it's going to be free. It's just a free webinar on Wednesday, the 7th of August. I will send a Zoom link closer to the day, is Stress to Zest, creating calm in your busy mind. And it's very much around this topic. So taking stress and feeling overwhelmed to a sense of zest, which is your energy, your enthusiasm, your motivation. And look, let's put a smile on our own dial. Winter's a really difficult time, but I find it a positive time to just go within, get ready to spring forward. And that sounds tacky, but it's so true. We get so caught up in cold, and but see it as a positive time. So I thought, right, August, stress to zest, you can come out the other end. And we can all be zesty. Come along, enjoy it. I'll give you the link for that.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sorry, my son's opening veggie straws in the background. That's what that crackling is. Yeah. Make sure there's a peg on it. Put it in the pantry. And Sadie, I will see you soon.
All right. See you soon. Bye, Dani.
Yeah, bye.